Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Walters Wanderings Travel Podcast. My name is Scott Walters, and today I have a special guest with me who's going to talk about traveling with both children and adults who are on the autism spectrum. Dawn Barkley, I've known for years from other pursuits. We'll talk about that too. And she's with us here today to talk about what I think is going to be a very important book that's going to help a lot of people when it comes to vacationing and traveling in general. So, Dawn, first of all, thanks for coming on board today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me. It's great.
So give us the title of the book and some of the specs of the book as far as from the publishing aspect of it. And then we'll dive in and we'll get into the details of what you cover in the book.
Sure. The book is entitled Traveling Different: Vacation Strategies for Parents of the Anxious, the Inflexible, and the Neurodiverse. It is available, or will be available, through Rowman and Littlefield. That's who's publishing it, on August 15th, but it is available for pre-order in both the audiobook and the hardcover editions. The ebook cannot be ordered until the 15th, and it's going to be available at all major online booksellers. You can also request it either at local bookstores or at your library, which is always a good idea to do.
So basically, it's available now for the pre-order, even though it's not coming out until August, and that's fine, because for a lot of people, getting the pre-order, I think, is pretty important, because then they're first in line for the actual product when it is actually available in mid-August. So that's excellent. What's the cost of the book?
The book is retailing it for $32 for the hardcover, and I believe the ebook is going to be $30. And the way I label that is travel insurance, because even one tip can make a trip a success, and that's a way to guarantee success through insurance.
Well, I'm going to order a copy myself, because as a travel advisor, I think it's going to be a very important resource set for me, and very important source of information. And B, this is an area of travel that is booming in many respects. Now, let's get into how did you stumble into writing a book on this subject?
Well, first, I just want to say that what I found writing the book is that these special needs travel tips can help even neurotypical families. And we all see people breaking down and going into tantrums at the happiest place on earth. So it can happen anywhere. And all children, when they're taken out of their comfort zone, can become anxious and inflexible and overwhelmed. So it's a great book to have no matter who you're traveling with. What inspired me to write the book is that, I've been a travel trade reporter for over 30 years. When I needed a book like this back in the early 2000s, it was not available. I did start researching it at that time. I spoke to people like Dr. Tony Atwood, who is huge in autism community. I spoke to Dr. Ellen Littman, who is huge in ADHD, especially for girls. And then I kind of hit a stumbling block, because I didn't have access to the parents I wanted to speak to. And it wasn't until 2019, when a combination of many more resources being available, many more ways for me to find those parents, and also a lockdown that stopped me from leaving the house for 2 years, gave me the time to write the book that I've been wanting to write since the early 2000s. It was supposed to be my first book. It ended up being my 8th.
Well, that's all right. Sometimes, I think maybe also when you started the whole process back, 20 years ago, obviously the information and the whole population and the whole ennui, for lack of a better term, was entirely different than it is now, because the awareness of things like autism, ADHD, and other things was certainly not at the level it is now. And so I think by having the ability now to be able to talk to parents and get firsthand anecdotal experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as well as talking with all these, well-respected professional, physicians, et cetera, I think probably makes for a more well-rounded product than you would have produced 20 years ago. Of course, the other flip side is, if you did it 20 years ago, you'd be doing the third edition with different additions, because obviously even the travel landscape has changed a whole lot.
Yeah, and what's true now is that there are organizations like IBCCES, which is the International Board of Credentialing and Continuing Education Standards, people like the Champion Autism Network, Culture City, Sensory City. There are a bunch of different organizations that are either certifying different locations as certified autism centers or as autism friendly. And so there is so much more of a push, whether it is out of compassion or out of economic reasons, for inclusion in tourism.
Well, that's excellent. I really appreciate that. So, if you were to, just offer up to us, I guess the next question becomes, how does a venue become certified? That's a very interesting, must be a very interesting process, and it must be one that, is taken with great care.
You know what? Great question. And I actually have something out of the book that I can read to you if you'll bear with me.
Sure.
For example, I'm going to read to you Beaches was one of the first advanced, well, I think it is the only advanced certified autism center. They've gone beyond and beyond, above and beyond to help the community. And I'm just going to list some of the things they offer to those on the spectrum. First, the staff receives in-depth education with 40 credit hours on autism sensitivity and awareness, centered on communication, motor skills, social skills, environmental awareness, emotional awareness, bullying, early childhood identification, transition to adulthood, and more. 2, changes to protocols and physical space to accommodate various needs. 3, an optional service of one-on-one beach buddies, providing personalized private childcare with a buddy who is autism certified and can be pre-booked for a nominal fee. 4, a dedicated toll-free number to their special services team. But of course, your listeners don't have to worry about that because they can call you.
That's right. I can call the special services team and we'll hook you up.
I'm not giving that number. So 5, a culinary concierge program to support specific dietary restrictions and special requests. 6, modified check-in options for private in-room check-in. 7, availability of sensory toys as well as dream pad pillows. 8, modified design and decoration in the kids' camps and key entertainment areas to create a more sensory-friendly environment. And what Beaches is also doing is launching a sensory stimulation guide for guests with sensory needs, providing comfort and an understanding of what to expect in each designated area of the resort. So the guide outlines the degree of sensory stimulation in a specific area or event, allowing families to easily plan and navigate their visit based on individual needs. So
that's really superb stuff. And obviously, I know that the Beaches brand and the adult only partner brand Sandals have always been like leaders in this kind of innovation. So, if you have an adult couple, they can go to the Sandals, and the Sandals will be following most of the same protocols because it's the same corporate umbrella, as an example. So that's really good stuff. And you have to tip your hat to Beaches for doing that, because that's a lot of work on their part in order to make that happen, don't you think?
Yeah, a lot of theme parks and water parks are following the same protocol. Any venue that is listed in my book as a certified autism center has gone through this kind of training. So Legoland and Sesame Place and SeaWorld, all of these have this kind of training. I know that at SeaWorld, they even have signage that will indicate what your child is going to smell. If, say, they're going to feed the seals, say beyond this point, this is what it's going to smell like. So your child can weigh the excitement of feeding a seal versus what they're going to smell. And I think that's excellent.
No, it's true. I went to SeaWorld in April, and I actually did see some signage, and they did have available, brochures and other written materials for those people who were needing that. Not just for the autism spectrum, but for any other kind of, special needs, or as I like to call it, otherly abled people.
Yes.
It's really important, for especially a park of that sort where you have a lot of animal activity, to sort of make people aware of what they may encounter. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not only for children on the spectrum, but also with any invisible disability, such as ADHD or bipolar. Any of these invisible disabilities can benefit from the book, because there are a lot of crossover symptoms and experiences.
There's no doubt. So you get started, you go deep, you have a whole bunch of places that are obviously certified by these professional groups. That's all in the book. Now, what I guess the next part is, like, because I know from what I've been dealing with the last few months, airline travel has been a real pita. It's been a real pita. What kind of information does the book include for airline travel?
Yeah, so actually, the actual locations that you can go to only make up about 20-25% of the book. The rest are different strategies that you can use with any type of travel, and one of those is being airline travel. Very long chapter, probably the longest chapter in the book, and it will talk about what to bring. One of the things that you need to do before a long airline trip is to preview it ahead of time, because the key to traveling with children on the spectrum or without is to create predictability and a frame of reference, because everybody likes routine, especially children. So how can you preview the airline experience? One way is through a group called Wings for Autism. They had shut down during COVID, but I believe they're starting up again, and they provide tours of the airport and role playing so that you can actually experience what it's like from arriving at the airport all the way up to boarding. There are airlines that you can call that will provide a similar tour for you. And some airports have low sensory rooms where you can decompress. I know that Pittsburgh is one of those. Others are listed in the book. The way you might explain airline turbulence, light turbulence to a child, because I know that's going to be somewhat upsetting, is to take them on a ride on a bumpy country road and have them close their eyes, because when you think about it, that is what turbulence kind of feels like. You might have them read books about their favorite characters on airlines and in air travel, and some of the adventures that they encounter, so they can be just like their favorite characters. You can show videos of what the airline experience is like ahead of time. Videos are your friends. And then there are different experiences, like strategies, I should say, such as the using social stories. Are you aware of what social stories are?
No, go ahead. Talk about that for a second.
Okay, let me explain that, because I have that written out too. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, here we go. Social stories are a method that autism consultant Carol Gray developed as an engaging and interactive way to help those on the spectrum cope with new or problematic situations. And according to an author called Beth Arkey in her article for Child Mind Institute called Tips for Traveling with Challenging Children, the stories, which are written from a child's point of view, use narration as well as photos and drawings to guide a child through an experience, preparing him or her for social interactions that might be required and prompting desired responses. So a story for a child on the autism spectrum about a trip to Florida, for example, might include travel details, things he or she might be nervous about, people he might or she might meet, reassurance that parents will be with them all the time, and activities that they like and can anticipate enjoying.
Well, that definitely sounds like what you're trying to do is you're obviously there's several key things I think we're trying to do. We're trying to make the stress levels go way down, which is a huge thing. We're trying to make sure that it's understood what the expectations are as
Yes.
far as what the travel involves, and also give them a preview, because expectations and preview are two different things. But if you can preview what the experience is going to be, then that definitely will make it more. In most cases, it'll make it a better traveling experience. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And some of the other tips for traveling, I talk about what to do at the airport, when to board, where to sit, but also make sure that your child has some sort of toy with buttons to push, which will stop them from pushing the flight attendant button.
Right, or something else, or putting the seat back and into the person behind them, inadvertently, or whatever else.
Yeah.
That's certainly understood.
And so also, you're going to run into issues with you might run into issues with motion sickness, with their ears popping. You might want to tell the people around you about your child's issues so that's not a big surprise if anything happens. But a lot of my book is about preparing in advance so you don't have the sensory meltdowns while you're traveling. And I think those are important strategies to know in advance.
Well, no, I think, yeah, because as as uh, as a musician friend once told me many years ago, she said, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. She says, "Preparation reduces anxiety.
Oh,
It
yeah.
won't take it away completely because it's human nature to still have a little anxiety, but if you prepare, your anxiety is lessened. And
Absolutely.
I think that's a really key point. One more popular travel type is cruises.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what cruise lines are doing, and if there's any cruise line that stands out in your mind.
The 5 major cruise lines do have programs in place for people on the spectrum. The leader really was Royal Caribbean. They do an excellent job. In the book, I actually list all the things they offer, and they also can bring sensory toys. They have a sensory or an autism channel on their in-room.
I did see that actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when I went in February, I actually did see that, and it was kind of calming and soothing kind of things, just to keep those people who need to be calmed and soothed that way. So I did
yeah.
see that.
And so the kids club will have trained individuals who can take care of your child. And also, people should be aware that there's an organization called Autism on the Seas. I'm sure you can book through them on their behalf, which puts together groups of travelers with children on the spectrum so that the parents can meet each other, network, commiserate, talk, their children can meet. And it's just, I think, a wonderful program. And they also offer scholarships. I think you can get a grant for a discounted cruise if you don't have the money to afford the cruise yourself.
Well, that's really good key information, and like I said, it is kind of a fraternity slash sorority of families that have to deal with this, and I think and also sometimes you end up finding people that maybe live close to you that you might not have known otherwise. I mean,
It's true. My daughter met somebody who lived down the block on a on a cruise to Alaska.
and there you go. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, it's funny you say that because I'm walking the streets of Charleston on a cruise after taking the tour, and I'm walking back to the ship, and the guy saw me in my Nyack shirt, and he says, "Are you from Nyack?" I go, "No, I'm from Nanuet." He goes, "I'm from Nanuet too," and it turns out he lived 4 blocks from me.
How
So, I
funny.
mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing how that works. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt. So, I think we've more or less covered this book as far as the main modes of traveling with people on the spectrum goes. So let's dive into some of your other work. You're also published other books that are
Yes.
fiction.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of those and what you might be most proud of.
Well, I should add that I know you from outside of the travel world because your mother is a very well-known author. She is the leader of my critique group, and she was a leader in the ebook revolution. Her name is Janet Lane Walters, so I just like to give a shout out to her.
That's true. You can look her up on any of the main book services, or you can Google Janet Lane Walters books, and you'll find a whole bunch of them. There's no doubt.
Yeah, so she's a good friend, and yes, I've written or edited 7 other books. My first one was called Expired Listings, and as a realtor, it was kind of a satire of the real estate world in which people do very bad things in empty houses. So it's a little bit racy, but there is somebody is murdering all the realtors in a small town, and nobody really cares because they feel like the public feels it's like a public service, and the other realtors say, "Hey, great, less competition." And that's all fine except for one realtor who's kind of getting targeted, as she's getting accused of the murders, and she's kind of kinky, and
Obviously,
involved
and
in
she's not the
assaulting.
murderess, so there you go. Not that we give any spoilers, but I'm quite sure the story takes twists and turns and goes into several cul-de-sacs and comes out on the other side.
Yes, she gets involved in solving the murder along with the detective who she has a crush on. So
Well,
that was probably my favorite book, maybe because it's my baby. It was my first, but I followed it up with another book called Murder Worth the Wait, which is about a plot against the diet industry. There's a book called Saving Grace, which is about a woman who's afraid her husband's going to knock her off after her father dies. He's a billionaire, and she's been on paranoia meds all her life, and so she's scared nobody will believe her. So she has to find a way to save herself without disrupting the family in case she's wrong. So that's called Saving Grace. And then I have some romances. I have Queen of Second Chances, and I have Simple Tryst of Fate, which was based on a press trip that I took to Argentina, although they have much more fun than I had on this trip. And I co-edited an anthology of crime stories called Justice for All, Murder New York Style 5 for Sisters in Crime. So that came out last summer. Yeah. So that's,
well, there you go.
some of them.
So you obviously do the fiction and the nonfiction, but again, this book is really going to be an important resource for a whole lot of people. Give a plug again, and I'll give my little promo. So go ahead,
Sure.
tell us the book and all the specs.
Backtracking, the fiction is under my pseudonym, D.M. Barr. The nonfiction book is under my name, Dawn M. Barkley. It is, again, Traveling Different, Vacation Strategies for Parents of the Anxious, the Inflexible, and the Neurodiverse, available on all online booksellers, as well as, you can go in and order it at a bookstore or at a library. And I appreciate if you do ask your library to buy it, because that way it's available for people who can't afford it.
No, that's a good point, and I'll certainly let my local library know to go ahead and pony up the $32 for the hardcover, $30 for the ebook, and again, pre-order now, August 15th. It'll be in your hot little hands. And if you want the audiobook, you can pre-order it, but you're not going to get that media until August 15th. So it's all good.
Yeah, the audiobook you can pre-order. I'm sorry. The audiobook you can pre-order. I don't know the price. The ebook you won't be able to order until the 15th.
So the ebook you have to wait on, but what I'll do is I'll make sure to repost this podcast when we get real close to August 15th. So we'll take care of that. And here's my deal, because I'm a wheeler dealer guy. If you pre-order Dawn's book, okay, and you send me a receipt that shows that you pre-ordered it, I don't need to see the credit card information, but I do need to see confirmation you've ordered the book. If you pre-order Dawn's book, I will go ahead and pay for it. I'll pay for the book for you. What I'll do is it'll be in the form of an onboard credit on a cruise, or it'll be a gift card if you take the family to Disney or beaches or a resort or similarly a land vacation. You'll get the money returned to you in that form so that you can enjoy your vacation. So you have to buy the book, you have to show me the receipt, and you have to book a vacation with Walter's Wanderings Travel, and the book is yours basically for free because I'm covering that cost.
Oh, thank you very much. That's wonderful.
So there you go. So again, Dawn Barkley is our guest today. I really appreciate her insight. Yeah, we go back a long ways where we duke it out at trivia. We, sometimes I win, sometimes she does. But when she wins, she has ringers with her. When I win on my own. So that's the truth. I'm not lying. And so, she's a fun person to talk with, and I appreciate her being on the air with me today on the podcast. And again, this is really important stuff. Please go ahead and pre-order the book, and I'll help make sure that we take care of you with that. So this has been the Walter's Wanderings Travel Podcast.